good to go. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this special platform for action on financing social protection. I have to tell you, I'm really honored and delighted to be asked to moderate this session, not only because it is such a privilege to be with this incredible panel, but because we know that, in a sense, financing for development, what are we financing? Why are we doing this? And in fact, the ability to finance social protection is really at the heart of a lot of the issues that we are concerned with today. And the inadequacy of that social protection is also something that has become more and more evident to us, not just during the pandemic, but well before that. In fact, even now, about 3.8 billion people, that's almost half of the world's population, have no form of social protection whatsoever. So whether they get hurt or injured, whether they fall sick, whether they are unemployed, they have no protection at all. We have about 3.3 billion people who are living in countries that are experiencing more debt service payments than they are paying for health and education put together. And we have even more people living in countries that are suffering austerity, fiscal austerity for adjustment measures. Now, all of this actually means that social protection has become a critical issue, and the financing of social protection is particularly important because it is often seen as a soft target in many countries, whenever there is, in fact, a budget concern, whenever there are fiscal issues, and so on. So we really do appreciate the fact that the outcome document of this particular, the Compromiso Sevilla, has actually recognized and put in a commitment to raise the coverage of social protection at 2% percentage points per year. It's a very important commitment, a real commitment that you can monitor, and it's very important, I would argue, to monitor not just the coverage, but the quality of the social protection that is being delivered. And I know that the countries that are represented here are very, very well aware of this, and that they can provide us with a lot of information, a lot of examples, but also inspiration for others who are thinking about how exactly they could go forward in implementing this. It is, of course, a particular pleasure to invite His Excellency Gilbert Ongbo, who I am a big fan of as the Director General of the ILO, to deliver his remarks about the importance of social protection for workers in general, but also for society at large. So please, Mr. Ongbo.
Thank you so much, Jayati. First of all, thank you for accepting to moderate this session for us. In addition to thanking Brazil and South Africa, let me also thank the colleague from the Universal Social Protection USP 2030, with whom we are collaborating very hard in this. Obviously, ILO, we are the responsible to monitor one of the specific SDG 1.3.1 on the social protection. So I must admit that to have come to El Compromiso de Sevilla, where we really have this at least 2% point per year in terms of number of coverage, number of people that to be coverage to increase, is quite very important for us. You mentioned it, that we still have 3.8 billion people with zero protection. Although, yes, we have more than 51%, 52% of the population that maybe have at least some kind of protection, is still that 3.8 billion is really difficult for us in ILO when we talk about social justice, when you talk about fighting inequalities, when you talk about social cohesion, to think that we could have 3.8 billion people that are totally left, well, like, you are on your own, which is really what we are fighting for. So for us, it's going to be very crucial in implementing the FFD 4 to ensure that we put mechanisms in places to ensure that countries that are lagging behind could every year increase the coverage by this 2%, at least. Obviously, we are mindful, so we're setting, honestly speaking, we're setting that the lowest possible. So it's kind of is the floor that each country will be encouraged to even go far beyond this 2%. And please don't tell me that it's not achievable or is too much ambitious, because we know also what countries, several countries have done in recent years, particularly in working with institutions like ILO and others. Obviously, I'm very mindful that member states have so many priorities to juggle. I'm quite very mindful on that. This is why the whole discussion we are having since this morning become quite important, and thank you so much, and I know how strong, Jayati, you are on it, in terms of linking this with how do you manage the debt, how do you really increase the fiscal space, how do you ensure that you put measure to avoid the tax avoidances, how do we ensure that we have this international cooperation for tax evasion, and all those measures that we have to put in place to help member states to increase the fiscal space and therefore to increase the domestic revenue are going to help the countries. The last point that I wanted to mention, I've seen that all over the years, that every time we have a crisis, any kind of crisis, of course the social is always the first dimension to look for cuts on that. So I also want to make a plea and push for the fact that, you know, by keeping the social protection at the core of our whole development agenda will help us avoiding or reducing this risk, so that we could also make sure that in moving forward we can better balance both the economic, the environmental, and the social of our development.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. That was really terrific. And I think your emphasis on how really the bar is low, it's so doable. And there are so many countries who are doing more than that, which is why it's such an honor to have here two representatives of countries that are an inspiration, I have to say, to so many of us in the rest of the world. I mean, thank you, Brazil and South Africa. You have really provided us with some optimism in what can seem like a very dark world sometimes. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Her Excellency Maropene Ramaphosa, excuse my pronunciation. She's the Minister for Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation of South Africa, but also the chairperson of the G20 Development Working Group, which has a very important role to play in pushing for social protection. Please, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, and we're really excited as South Africa to be part of this platform and this discussion and the dialogue that we're going to be having here today. We definitely are excited precisely because we are currently the presidency of G20, and we are chairing, my department is actually chairing the development working group. Part of the priorities, of course, that we have, we've got 3 priorities, and one of them is social protection flows. We have done that precisely because we have an appreciation and an understanding that the issue of financing for development, or at least investing in social protection flows, is actually an investment in human capital. Because at the end of the day, whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's about the economy or it's about anything else that we do, it is precisely because people must then now be able to afford those things that must actually be protected under the social protection flows. So as a result, the investment in that becomes the #1 thing that we do. In many countries, of course, you will find that the biggest expenditure or the biggest budget item, not expenditure, because then it becomes wrong, political, to say it's just an expenditure, especially because I've just spoken about it as it being an investment, as opposed to it being just something that is an expense. And I'm saying that precisely because in South Africa, if you can look, our our number one biggest budget item is on social protection floors. That's what we do. Even when we went through a crisis during COVID-19 and we had to have a cut on our budget, we made sure that the issue of social protection floors is never touched, precisely because we had the understanding, and as I've already said, that whatever it is that you do, even if you create jobs, you increase the economy, at the end of the day, the end result of it should be access to health, access to education, to housing, which is exactly what we are talking about. But the other thing again that we are looking at is the fact that as you speak about development, and development such as climate change, for example, in South Africa, we've got something that is called the just energy transition. But we are saying that as much as you are transiting to the greener energy, that should allow us to be able to adapt, but also to play on the global stage, you also have to understand that the responsibility for social protection becomes important. And how do you do that? The issues of UIF, the issues of compensation fund, but most of all, the issues of reskilling the people becomes important, because if you talk about transition, but you don't talk about reskilling, most especially those that need jobs the most, or those that need intervention the most, you won't be able to transit in such a way that there would be economic progress and economic development and economic prosperity. So as a result, it becomes important as South Africa to say that whatever it is that is being done, if you cannot secure the social protection floors, then you would have failed, because economic development, economic prosperity that has got no protection of those that need it the most, then at the end of the day, we do believe that you won't be successful. So as a result, that is our position, and that's what we believe in. But we also believe that globally, we have to take responsibility as a unit, collectively, as a globe. And we are saying that precisely because if you don't deal with the issues of the debt burden that most countries, especially developing countries, in my region, for example, are actually facing, the issue of ensuring that resource mobilization domestically is done adequately is going to be affected. And I do believe, I think you have spoken about the tax base and the tax regime globally as well, making sure that the issue of the ratio of tax to GDP is actually also dealt with. If we don't deal with such things globally as a unit and as a collective, we will then now be affecting our ability to invest more on a national level as it relates to what we agree upon as it relates to social protection floors. So that would be our position as South Africa as we then now move forward to the G20. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic and so inspiring. And I'm so glad that you linked South Africa's own positive efforts and commitment to maintain and increase the social protection with a global order that is actually constantly trying to prevent you from doing that, which is a very, very important point, and which is really why we're all here today. And again, we have another country that has shown a path, a really very impressive path in many different ways in terms of social protection. So great pleasure to introduce His Excellency Wellington Diaz. He's the Minister of State for Social Development and Assistance, Family and Fight Against Hunger in Brazil. And if you remember the Fome Zero campaign, the Zero Hunger campaign has been such an inspiration in many parts of the world, including in my own country, where we are really still struggling with this issue. So please, Your Excellency, go ahead.
Olha, eu quero saudar.
Good afternoon. I would like to compliment the Director General of ILO and also our moderator, our Minister Maropen. I'm very proud of you with this responsibility to direct G20 with not always specific issues. Brazil has lived recently the presidency of G20, and we are thankful to South Africa and all countries, India and all countries that participated. I would like to say it's an honor to be here. And this proposal for coalition for the social protection 2030, it deserves from Brazil's part, together with Spain. Brazil is in the co-presidency of the fight against hunger, and I affirm that with Lula, I am representing Brazil. Our support for the coherence of the proposal, for the importance of having jobs, decent jobs, formal jobs, and also in relation to guaranteeing and scaling up 2% per year for the protection of social protection. Brazil has like a mattress of social protection. Is 94 million Brazilians. 216 million is the total of our population. 94 million participate of these social programs that we have in a very present way. We have some programs like the unique health system and the education one, who attends any Brazilian, from the richest to the poorest. So it needs to be done like a surgery of aneurysm. And if it costs $50,000, so the unique health system pays for it. You need to guarantee the payment of university. For example, the medicine course, $200,000 per month. Who pays that? The unique education Brazilian system in the public system, and also for some years now in the private sector as well. I say this because I want to call for attention that it's not a simple debate. Right now in Brazil, we have a wide debate where the president has assumed a compromise to put the poorest in the budget and to put the extremely rich in the income. So he did a proposal in the Senate, and we are looking for how to sustain this proposal, which is taxes on financial operations. So they don't pay taxes, or they pay a little bit. People who earn a lot of money pay less than a teacher, a school teacher, or an engineer, or a journalist. So this is the debate that we want in the world. In a moment that the world has many other issues to take out people from hunger and poverty. So I want to call for attention. The program, the social program, the strategy, it needs to be worked as a part of the development strategy for development, social development. So in the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, this is what we work in. It needs to be treated as a part of the project of economic development. So 2 examples from my country right now. First of all, the country lived a period of a low growth, economic growth. So when Lula came into presidency, he adopted social policies like to raise the the minimum wage, so that people in their first employment could reach a condition of attending basic needs. It's the best program for the poverty. So this means to people that reach the employment a condition to leave the misery and poverty. So we work with income transference and extra food to overcome hunger, and we have reached these 2 past years a reduction around 24 million Brazilians that we found in the insecurity, food insecurity. I'm sure FAO notes that we had this reduction in the food insecurity. I'm very optimistic. But we work, as I said, to overcome hunger, and this can only be achieved a safe floor when we overcome poverty. And this is done by one side. It has to be done with the income, with jobs, decent jobs that brings security to workers. And also entrepreneurship has to be present around the world, especially with new generations. Besides with having a job, they also dream of having entrepreneurship. Last year, with the example of 2023, we could achieve more than 1 million new jobs and around 4 million small jobs. So Lula is trying to achieve to these people and giving them guarantee. Because how can the poor have a credit? So the government created this fund to sustain and give assistance, technical assistance. So a lot of people now want to become entrepreneurs. And from these jobs, 70% are from these micro jobs. So we support these small jobs, and it generates jobs to other people. I want to say this to show a study in Brazil. The growth of Brazil last year, around the GDP grew around 3% per year. 1/3 of this growth is the economy of the poor, the smallholder, the small entrepreneur. Is the economy of the poorest. So what I wanted to say is that we embrace these 2 proposals, the need to elevate the floor to attend these people that are vulnerable with the social protection, and secondly, priorities for jobs, decent jobs. Because I can also add that for entrepreneurship, that it could be a way of protection for those who want to follow this path. Thank you.
Thank you. That was absolutely fascinating. And I really love the way you brought in the systemic issues of employment, of the quality of work. And the minimum wage thing is so important because it also has such a strong gender implication, because women are typically at the bottom of the wage hierarchy. So all of these, the fact that social protection is not just necessary in itself, but it's necessary macroeconomically, and it has to be part of a broader economic package and an economic approach that is fundamentally people-friendly. I think it's very inspiring for all of us. So big thanks to all our speakers. And I'm going to open it up for questions and comments. Yes, please, go ahead. There's a mic which will come to you right now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Giulia Massobrio from the International Trade Union Confederation. I just wanted to welcome this initiative and to share that as I2C we are very happy to endorse the Sevilla Platform for Action. I also wanted to acknowledge the hard work of the ILO in getting this text into the document. I saw ILO colleagues working in the corridors in New York for several meetings, and that was really what made the difference, together with the alliances and support of many governments, including obviously South Africa and Brazil. As you has just said, for us social protection is one of the pillars of what we call a new social contract. It's one of the 4 pillars of the decent work agenda of the ILO, and it has been one of the key asks that as trade unions we have been pushing for in the Financing for Development agenda since Addis, even before Addis. And I think having a clear percentage really help us move forward, seeing it as a floor, no, at least, yes, as we have saying. And I also think that the narrative that has been flagged as looking at investment in social protection as an investment in people, in rights, in the economy, rather than a burden, that's really helpful, I think, in order to bring more and more partners here. Then, as we said, Sevilla doesn't stop in Sevilla, so I think the next appointment is Doha, Qatar. So as ITUC, we are pushing to bring this language into the political declaration of Doha. I think there are other elements, as you have just said, of Sevilla that we can and we must leverage, connecting social protection to other parts of the document, investments in jobs, investment in the care economy, formalization, skills, wages. You mentioned wages, and this is something that is not in the outcome document of Sevilla, but that is in the current draft of the Doha political declaration, and we will fight to have living wages there. We will fight to have equal pay for work of equal value. So in a nutshell, you can count on the ITUC also to bring it back to the national level in the 170 countries where we have affiliates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, that's great. In fact, the idea that this is actually a movement, not just a few countries getting together, is a fantastic idea. So I think we should see this, as you said, as the beginning of something. Not necessarily even just towards Doha, but a platform for action where more and more countries can get involved. That's fantastic. So, yes, please. And then in the back. Yes, please.
Hi to everyone. My name is Ilham Norkov from Uzbekistan. I represent the Ministry of Economy and Finance, First Deputy Minister. And first of all, I want to thank for organizing this interesting panel. And going to the main topic of this panel, I want to say that, listening to the previous speeches of global leaders today, and the new commitment that we are going to take in the Sevilla agenda, I think it is impossible. And are we ready to do it? I think we are ready and we have grown up. Yes, today some leaders were saying that back in 2015, when global SDGs were announced, at that time the period was different. It was the world has changed. It became more difficult, but we have learned a lot. I'm just talking in the case of our own country, my own country, and there are globally a lot of good lessons. And are we ready to re-engineer based on the experience and the lessons? This is the question. And just in our own country case, in 2020, when we announced first time that poverty reduction as a main program of the government policy, when our new leadership came, in just 5 years, even during the COVID period, we were, successful to overcome the difficulties because of the, based on the the global cooperation and the partnership from the UN agencies, IFIs, I mean the MDBs, that we took all these lessons and then we tried to, draw our own, agenda. And it is more about efficiency. Today, the King of Spain was telling that the efficiency has to be the main word. And this is exactly important thing, I think. I just want to say we have grown up. Why? Because we are ready to do this. Because there are already platforms. Just a global accelerator that ILO, initiated.
I'm so glad you mentioned the global accelerator, Your Excellency. I've just been told we have less than 5 minutes left.
I will take 1 more minute because this is very important, and I will tell you, in a roadmap, we joined this global accelerator in 2023, and thanks to this accelerator, we developed a roadmap which has 4 key pillars and blocks, where the first one is, reducing the informal sector. This is very important. By reducing the informal sector, you don't only increase the tax base, but identify the really vulnerable group of people. And you also, do a targeted policy. It increases the social policy. The second one is the financial inclusion. And we did just a re-engineering based on the experience. And I'm not talking about the digital and, the green jobs, but this kind of platforms are there already. And we have grown up. We don't need much resource. We even, with some addition and existing resource, with good coordination, such as...
we have one more question at the back.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'm so sorry, Your Excellency, because it's a very short program. And with her question, and then I would like to bring it back to our audience. But thank you so much. These are very, very interesting examples. Please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Lena Simmet. I work with Human Rights Watch. We, of course, applaud this initiative of advancing universal social protection. But 2 things we would like to highlight is the ambition of the 2 percentage points, which we are concerned that in some countries and some regions where coverage is currently extremely low, it will take multiple decades to reach near universality. So again, considering that the right to social security is a universal human right, we think that ambitions should be much higher. On top of that, it currently doesn't say much about the adequacy of social protection. So we don't only need to strive for more universality, but also for more adequacy when it comes to benefits. And finally, I think the role of the international financial institutions is really critical here. As we've heard early in the morning in the opening remarks, that there continues to be a focus on highly narrow poverty-targeted programs, which are not universal in nature and often have been counter to develop universal systems. I leave it here, but thank you.
Thank you. There is one more question, if I may, very, very quick. It has to be like half a minute, if possible, because we are already at time. But
thank you. My name is Nicola Wieber. I'm working with the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, and I would also like to congratulate you and give you a lot of pushback from the civil society as well to take this forward. And we would like to have 2 things: to commit to the northern governments to create an enabling environment, creating more global justice, to enable countries to finance the social rights in their countries, and to go ahead towards universal social protection systems. Thank you.
Thank you. I think some important questions are being raised about adequacy in addition to coverage, about the role of the global system. And so if you would like to have very brief responses, maybe we just go in order. Yes?
Mine is not going to be much because I think there were more contribution that we can actually use. But in terms of adequacy, of course, everyone has just been talking about a better coordination, but to also come up with measurable inputs so that we don't just come up with what we believe is ideal, but we come up with what we know when we measure, we can then now be able to see impact. So meaning that whatever it is that we are putting in place, that whatever it is that we would be bringing as an action point, should then now, the first thing that we should ask ourselves, is it measurable? But then if it is measurable, how are we going to know if it is successful? Precisely because all countries and all sectors are different from one another. Therefore, whatever it is that we are going to measure will not necessarily be at the same level as much as it should be. We should strive for universal coverage as it relates to that. But also equally, so I think it's quite important to say, what do we do with the informal sectors that are actually at risk at the end of the day?
Thank you. And Your Excellency, would please.
Let me very quickly mention two things, addressing the issue about the adequacy and the ambition. I'm not at all worried about it, to be quite honest with you. Not only in the document, you will see that we talk about at least 2% points. But secondly, practically speaking, once ILO starts working with member states, obviously it's not just about numbers. You look at the quality, the adequacy, and how it's also taking into account the situation of the country. So it's not just like top down, it's taken up from the reality that we have on the ground. And it's going to be important that once you are able to kick off with that 2%, obviously then you look at the ability of the country to move ahead, knowing very well the current debate on whether the SDGs are too ambitious or not. So it's a matter of having the right balance at all. So I'm not really worried on that. We will continue that fight.
And Your Excellency, Mr. Diaz, please.
Thank you to all of you. So the question from Lina, I want to say that one of the main points of the Global Alliance is to accelerate with countries with more difficulty. Today we have 192 members fighting against hunger. Countries that make their plans and could help other countries with knowledge, financial knowledge, and in many other ways. And other countries that are in development that could give their support. So here today in Seville, we had the presentation of the first national plans. Palestine, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Haiti, Kenya, Zambia presented today their national plans, and many others are currently going on. It doesn't matter if it's a country, organism, the northern countries, all those who want to help in their plan, in the state plan. This is the fundamental point. And also, ILO also has an important. I just want to thank ILO for this challenge. You can count with Brazil. Brazil is ready to support. Lula has asked me to come here to represent Brazil and to say that Brazil is ready to support and be a partner in order to achieve these, to achieve a decent work and also support so that we can reach this growth of 2% per year in order to improve social protection. Thank you very much.
Incredibly rich discussion for just half an hour, and I also found it extremely energizing and inspiring. So once again, a big thank you to all our speakers, and thank you to ILO for taking this forward.
Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top, that's where